Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Las Vegas. This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Filled with wrestling news, entertainment, and lots of Sin City surprises from inside the squared circle. Now, let's bring on the tag team of Andrew Fish Fane, Joe DeFalco, and your host, Mark Hoke.
And we are back on the Mark Hoke Show for hour number 2. The best in pro wrestling news and entertainment here on KDWN 101.5 FM. So thank you for tuning in. We certainly do appreciate you taking the time out of your Super Bowl Sunday to join us. And we've got Joe DeFalco on the line, of course, from Future Stars of Wrestling. All sorts of great stuff going on there at FSW. Check it out at fswvegas.com, where maybe you can learn to become an incredible professional wrestler like Chris Bay, who we want to thank for being on the show. Joe, your thoughts about what you heard from Chris, and you know, you obviously helped train the guy. What do you think?
Well, yeah, obviously I know the whole Chris Bay story. Chris is also our Mecca Grand Champion, and he's going to be wrestling John Morrison on March 26th. And there's a good backstory about that I wish you guys would have had the opportunity to talk about. There's a video of Chris, because he kept track of things, when he was 10, 11, 12 years old, when he talks about his love for professional wrestling. It's no lie. There's a YouTube video that he's done, and it shows him meeting John Morrison. And, back in the day when we were first doing our Mecca stuff, he wrestled John and Brian Cage for the Mecca Grand Championship, and the very first Mecca that we did when we were crowning the champion. So, there's a great backstory. And then this past Friday, Chris returned to the ring, and that's one thing about Chris. He's a guy who is very appreciative of the opportunities that I gave him. And, we didn't get into the stories of, Chris quitting jobs and, not having his lights on sometimes, because he would prefer not to go to a job instead of going to training and going to a wrestling match. And it's like, what do you mean I can't have off Friday night? Okay, well, I guess I quit. And the thing about Chris was he put all his eggs in the one basket, and I always said that Chris Bay's journey is not one that I would recommend to anybody, because for Chris it was all or nothing. I'm going to be a professional wrestler, and that's it. And, usually the journey takes a lot longer. And Chris was very fortunate that, in a very short period of time, he, got the opportunity to get signed by Impact. There's guys that we had as champions, the now known as LA Knight, who's, in a feud with Bray Wyatt, who took 10, 12 years before he got, an opportunity to go to WWE and prove that he belongs in that scenario. It took Chris 3. 3 is almost unheard of. So, and you look at LA Knight and you look at Brian Cage's and you say, wow, look at these guys. They're big guys. They're jacked. And it took them so long. And Chris Bay, as an undersized guy who's 150 pounds at the time, was able to, swim around the sharks and basically get into a position to be signed by a major company very early on in his journey in professional wrestling. And that says a lot.
Yeah, and he's a terrific guy, too. I mean, just fantastic person. And, we want to, continue to wish him all the best. And, we'll get him back on and, talk more about where he comes from and so on. So it's a fascinating story.
He wrestled our 15-year-old prodigy, Bodie, because, he would help out. We have kids class every Saturday, and Bodie started with us at 8 or 9 years old, and Chris knows Bodie from when he was 9 years old and his progression. And on, Friday night, Bodie at 15 years old wrestled in the main event against Chris Bay, and then they had a great match. And, Chris feels that in a very short time that, Bodie will be, joining the ranks of the FSW guys who have gotten to where they were hoping to get when they first started in FSW, and that is being, whether it's Impact or AEW or WWE or New Japan, to get that opportunity to make a living as a professional wrestler.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got some amazing talent there at FSW, and make sure you guys go check it out, fswvegas.com, and get to all the great shows that Joe and the team put on. And but we want to extend a thanks to Ross Foreman from Impact Wrestling for getting Chris on the show. We certainly appreciate him extending that courtesy. I'm sure we'll hear from some more people from Impact Wrestling as they get ready to head into No Surrenders pay-per-view on Friday the 14th. That's at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And then we've got the No Surrender Fallout tapings on the 25th and 26th at 7 p.m. at Sam's Town as well. So make sure that you get out there. You can actually get the 3 ticket packs as well. You just go to impactwrestling.com and you can get on board and go see some amazing professional wrestling. Should be a terrific night.
As well as our latest signee with that company, Jay Vidal.
Yes, he's going to be involved as well. It's going to be a terrific card, and there are some just outstanding talents. And if you haven't watched Impact for a while, you really need to take a look and get back in there for sure.
And you'll be able to meet me because I'll be there because, we said, they use our ring and we have a great relationship with Impact, and hopefully you're going to see even more FSW people on their show. In the past they've used Maserati and Damian Drake, and, so when they come to Vegas, there's always a good chance you're going to see your favorite FSW star there too.
Yep. So check it out. It's going to be an awesome time. By the way, while we're giving thanks, I do want to take a second to thank, a lot of people across the planet, to be very frank. The interview that we had on with Tony Khan went absolutely viral across the world. And I mean, when I Googled some of this, I saw a few sites picked it up that I sent out to, and then some more picked it up. And some more picked it up, and by the time it was done, there were links to our show in Portuguese, Italian. It was unreal. And I wanted to just take a second to thank everybody who took the time to, post some stuff from the interview with Tony Khan. I want to thank John Schneider and AEW for being kind enough to get Tony on the show. And just amazing thing to see happen. So thank you to everyone who did that. We certainly appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have more material for you as time goes on the Mark Hoke Show. And speaking of that, by the way, guess who's going to be on the show next week? It's going to be Jeremy Lambert from Fightful.com is going to join us. So we're going to get to hear from Jeremy from one of the top wrestling, MMA, and sports sites on the planet. Is going to be here, so we'll get to hear from Jeremy. That's going to be a fun time. Looking forward to that, Joe. Get to talk to Jeremy.
Yeah, he's been Fightful, so I didn't know him directly, but in the past when we've done stuff like Natural Born Killers, which is our offshoot MMA style show, and some of our bigger FSW shows, they've definitely given us some love by helping promote some of our things, so that's always good.
Yeah, so we'll look forward to hearing from Jeremy Lambert next week on the Mark Hoke Show. Of course, coming up in a little bit, we're going to hear from Baby Doll. And Joe, just real quick, your thoughts about her and her place in professional wrestling history before we hear from her.
To be honest, Baby Doll was probably just a little bit before I started really watching NWA, WCW type stuff. I probably caught more of the tail end because, from being from New York, I was more, Bruno Sammartino, WWF, and on the tail end, then I started, watching the TBS shows. So, I'm aware of her. It's funny that you bring up Baby Doll because one of our managers, MK, very good friends with Missy Hyatt, and we actually had lunch before the last No Escape show we did. And, speaking of legendary female valets, Missy and Baby Doll were probably the two first ones that really got national recognition throughout the world.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing interview. We're looking forward to hearing from her in just a little bit. She'll be coming up in the next segment on the Mark Hoke Show here on KDWN. Before we do that, Joe, of course, we got a big pay-per-view coming up this week. Excuse me, premium live event. Pardon me. Don't go after me, WWE. I do apologize. But Elimination Chamber's coming, and we got more intriguing stuff happening on SmackDown with Sammy and secret meetings with Jay and Jimmy and lying to Roman and all sorts of crazy stuff going on. Roman's telling the Usos to stay home. So this is going to be a fairly interesting night on the road to WrestleMania. Want to get your thoughts on on the matches here real quick. That U.S. title match, it's going to be inside the chamber. We got Austin Theory defending the U.S. title against Seth Rollins, Johnny Gargano, Bronson Reed, Damian Priest, and Montez Ford. Pretty interesting mix of guys in that match. So who do you think's coming out of that, and what do you think about this one?
Well, I think it's been disappointing to a lot of people that the Elimination Chamber is about the U.S. title this time. And a lot of people are looking forward to maybe seeing, Jey Uso and Sami Zayn in it. And instead they're getting Zayn and Roman Reigns. Obviously the idea, I would think, is to continue the push of Austin Theory. And I can't see him not walking away victorious in it.
All right. Elimination Chamber match for the Raw Women's Championship match, so you get to be the number one contender and wrestle at WrestleMania 39. We got Asuka, Liv Morgan, Nikki Cross, Raquel Rodriguez, Natalya, and Carmella. That was kind of a surprise there. By the way, Asuka is a massive favorite on betonline.ag. I mean, huge.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday. I was like, wow, I guess there's not even a thought who's going to win.
Yeah, so do you agree with that, Joe?
I thought there was a chance at the Rumble that she was going to win. It's like, so she's been kind of stagnant. She's changed up the character, and I guess that was a big time character for her in Japan. And if she doesn't win, it's kind of like, well, it defeated the whole purpose. So yeah, I believe she has to.
All right. We've got Edge and Beth Phoenix taking on the Judgment Day, Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley in a mixed tag match. Any chance you think Judgment Day walks out with this with Rhea getting the big push for WrestleMania?
Well, it is disappointing that, again, you look at the odds, and in a lot of cases they know that it advanced information. And it's like, so you're telling me a part-timer like Edge, and not even a part-timer, a one-offer, are the heavy favorites to beat the team that you're hoping to establish down the line as a major influence in the company, and they're major underdogs. Like,
yeah.
What does it do for Beth Phoenix to win? This is the stepping stone for Rhea Ripley. If you're bringing in Trish Stratus and for a match, to have her beat Sasha or whatever, this all makes no sense. That's what they've done. They've been there, they've done that. It's the appeal, Lita getting involved, all this stuff, but they don't need to come back and beat, the top contenders. The nostalgia is them being there. That's the fact that we're going to get Lita and we're going to get Beth Phoenix. Great, one more time we're going to get to see them on a pay-per-view, but their job is now to make the new stars bigger stars.
Yeah, I really think that Finn and Rhea are going to go over on this. So that may be one to pick on this one on betonline.ag. We've also got Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar going to get some beefy man fighting there. should be a fun match. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm excited because I believe this is the first time ever that these two are stepping foot in the ring. Oh, wait, the 50th time ever. It's like, again, it's like they're pushing toward this match as if it never happened before. And it's like, not that it's not going to be good, but it's like, that's not a fresh matchup. Like, what about having Gunther or giving Cross, who they've forgotten all about, these opportunities to, again, create new stars? It's like Lashley, like they've not figured out what to do with him again over the last, few months. Hey, maybe we're going to put him back with MVP, and hey, we're going to give Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin a win, but hey, maybe we're going to change our mind again in 2 weeks. And it's, when you're putting together storylines, you got to have ideas of what you're doing. And it was like, we had heard rumors of Gunther and Lesnar, and now it's like back to what they did at WrestleMania, or what they did right before that, which was Lashley and Lesnar. And it's like, great, you're going to get a bang up match for 5 or 6 minutes, and okay, then what? That's where the idea of paying Brock Lesnar $500,000 for a match or $5 million to be on a few shows is to put over Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
Again, I don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, the last one is going to be Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn, and obviously this is going to be a setup for WrestleMania. We got about a minute before we need to get to break, and then we'll be having Baby Doll on the show. Thoughts on this one? Yeah,
it should be one of the biggest matches in the last year, but with everybody knowing that Roman Reigns is wrestling Cody, unless they pull a swerve, I don't see anybody believing Sami Zayn can win, only because of the whole setup with Cody Rhodes. I think if there was no Cody Rhodes in the picture, people might be like, Sami Zayn might pull this off. And at this point, I just can't see it happening.
Yeah, this is going to be... But I'll tell you what, there's going to be a lot of excitement for this one. There's going to be some people that are going to be jacked up for seeing Sammy wrestle Roman. So should be a lot of fun.
1,000%. But if there was no Cody Rhodes wrestling Roman Reigns next month, it would be even crazier.
Yep. So, well, we'll see how this goes. All right, well, let's head into our next break. And when we come back, one of the great icons of the 80s professional wrestling history. Can't wait to talk to her. Baby Doll coming up here on the Mark Hoke Show. So a lot more to come. Best in pro wrestling news and entertainment. Stick around, everybody. Baby Doll joined us here on the show. We'll be right back.
This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Here again, your host, Mark Hoke.
And we are back on the Mark Hoke Show, the best in professional wrestling news and entertainment on the planet. Now, we like to say the multiverse, too, because we're just that darn good. But it looks like I'm going to be flying solo the rest of the way today, except for the fact that we have just an amazing guest, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to have this person on the show. Just absolutely enshrined in the history of professional wrestling. A big fan, and loved her or hated her, depending on what was going on in the industry at the time. But I cannot begin to tell you how thrilled I am to have this person on the show. Of course, great wrestler, manager, valet, and involved in some of the greatest feuds in professional wrestling history, as we welcome Baby Doll to the show. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. This is an honor and a privilege to be with you. Thank you so much.
Well, that's very sweet of you to say thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny. As I was doing research to get ready for this, I kept seeing how your career has just gone through so many different places in professional wrestling. Between world class and so many great superstars that you worked with over the years in Crockett and NWA and so on. It's got to be pretty awe-inspiring when you think about it, of all the great people that you worked with and how much you were actually a part of as time went by in professional wrestling?
It was it was so cool because you really didn't know it at the time, like how awesome it was going to be. I mean, I was like in my early 20s and got to work with World Class for a couple of months and actually worked with Gino when he won the Texas Heavyweight Championship and the 6-man championship, and got to work like a big show in the Cotton Bowl and Reunion Arena. And that was all in the span of like 3 months. I mean, I wasn't trained to wrestle. I wasn't didn't have anything except for my knowledge of wrestling from growing up with my parents, and got to do some amazing things with World Class, and then bounced over to Jim Crockett Promotions and got to work with Tully, and he had the TV championship and the national belt, and eventually I worked with Dusty when he won the world's heavyweight title and the Western States title with Zbyszko. So I kind of look at my lineage with all the championships that my guys have held, and I don't think that any female has worked with that many guys with that many belts, and I don't think that any female has had as much heat that I had, because during '85 it was brutal. It was awesome. So just in a very short amount of time, in 2 years, you guys are still talking about me like 40 years later, and that's amazing, and I love it.
Well, to me, and I, as someone who, when I first started watching wrestling, I was probably about 12 years old. And when I started seeing, I watched WWF, and then all of a sudden I started picking up the wrestling magazines, reading Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and then my local station started carrying World Class, and they started carrying Crockett Promotions from the Mid-Atlantic. And here I am watching all this, and still, to me, one of the greatest feuds and matches I have ever seen. And when people ask me what's your favorite match of all time, the first thing that comes to mind is the I Quit match with Tully, Blanchard, and Magnum T.A., which you were involved in. And
right,
just
absolutely
unbelievable psychology, and that feud just leading up to it, and what you added to it as well. And you were an integral part of that match. And just, I'd love to go back to that night and, what was going through your mind, and, how important you were in that, because you did play a key role in that match, and it was just an incredible evening.
The whole lead up, the 3 to 4 months that we had as the build up, that Dusty put into the vignettes and the feud, everything made sense. Every week you kind of tuned in to see what else was going to be done, like how much were they going to poke each other and goad each other into this epic battle. And to this day, I would stand up that the build-up and the match, the I Quit match that Tully and Magnum had in Greensboro, to this day is one of the best matches ever in professional wrestling. Their animosity between the two, they really did not like each other. They were both trying to be like the bull of the woods, as Dusty said, in the promotion, and be the top drawer and the top person. So they had that, going for them. Plus, then when you look at the three parts of it, if Tully wasn't part of it, if Magnum wasn't part of it, and especially if I wasn't part of it, none of it would have worked the way that it did. It was just, I've said it before, it was magic. Just how everything made sense and it worked. And for me, the scariest part was when they said that I had to throw the chair over the top of the ring. And when you think about it, that, it's like an 8-foot top of the cage, and then you've got another 4 foot of the ring. So you've got to throw this chair 12 foot over the top. Well, the first time I threw it, it didn't make it. It made it about 80%, and it bounced off, and I was able to catch it and then threw it back up. And when I caught it, it was like, oh, this has got to go. Please let it go. And it sailed. It was perfect like that second time. So the crowd, I don't think I've ever seen a video where you can see where the chair didn't make it. You can hear it in a lot of the videos. You can hear the chair clink against the cage. But I'm thinking, man, if that chair didn't go over, it would have screwed up everything.
Yep.
It would have just been, it would have never made sense. But just in the way that the chair broke, and you've got this, this weapon that they used against each other, and you're like the threatening, like, I'm going to poke your eye out, and the screaming and the whole thing. It was scary, even for me, like being on the outside of the ring. It was cringeworthy. It really was.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, go back and watch it, because to me it's still a textbook on ring psychology and wrapping up a feud and just the pure emotion that was in it. And so I just want to give you a thanks for making that happen, because.
And to this day, I can honestly say Tully never said I quit.
No, he did not. He did not. He said yes. He did not say I quit.
Right. So that's like the cherry and the whipped cream and the little sprinkles on the top. We can, to this day, say that Tully never said I quit.
That is very true. Well, when you talk about a situation like that, and I think that when people watch professional wrestling, and there's somebody on the outside of the ring, whether it's a manager, valet, or so on, and I don't think that people really realize how important that role is in carrying a match. And, like if you hadn't done what you did and done it properly, it would have ruined the I Quit match and so many other ones that happened over the years. Tell everybody a little bit about how you kind of plan that out and how important that role is as you're going through matches and a feud and so on.
Well, being a valet or being outside the match, it's like a theater and a stage. The ring is our stage. So everything takes place in the middle of the ring so that everyone can see it. So you don't want to take away from what the guys are doing in the ring, but you just want to add that little extra to it, and screaming and clapping and being right at the right time at the right spot. And that timing is essential, because you can throw everything off. So it was really important that I paid attention. And even though I saw was working every night and seeing the matches every night, I had to be focused on what was going on in the ring. Plus, then you also have to be focused on the crowd and what's happening behind you, because there were a lot of times that people came up behind me and kicked me or hit me or were trying to come into the ring. And so you have to kind of have the 360 going on with everything that's around you. It's not as simple as it would seem to be, because you've really got to be on point and be a part of the match without taking away from the match.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I watched a couple of appearances, especially the one on the Tales for the Territories, where you were telling some of the stories about some of the crazy things that happened at ringside. But I don't think that people realize in today's professional wrestling, you've got so much space, you have a lot of security, so you're much more protected. But if you're a younger fan and you haven't seen what it was like back then, you guys were out there with people a couple feet behind you, and it was so dangerous. And I can only imagine what it was like being a female out there too, and as much heat as you would generate. People hated you. I hated you as a character.
Right, yeah.
And to be in that spot, I can only imagine what that was like. I remember hearing Jim Cornette saying that, or people saying, I was like Ricky Morton was saying that, how he was keeping an eye on Cornette, and I'm sure the guys were keeping an eye on you too. So what was that like to be in that space? I couldn't imagine.
I would say 90% of the events that I worked did not have any guardrails around the ring.
Wow.
There was very, very little security. The police, God bless them, tried their best to protect us. But when you got 2,000 people trying to get at us, it's hard for 3 officers to keep everybody away. It's just impossible. And then the one thing that I didn't like was the officers would grab my arms and push my arms to my side to try and escort me through. And it's no, let me go. I've got to be able to protect myself,
right,
and keep people from grabbing me and punching me and, doing inappropriate stuff. And, I don't think that there was a time in 85, whenever I worked with Tully, that I went back to the dressing room that I didn't have wads of spit in my hair and chunks of hair taken out. But I also figured if it was easy for me to go back to the dressing room, I hadn't done my job. The harder it was, the better I had done my job. So it was kind of like that love-hate of like, okay, come on. And I wore like the gauntlets, like the spike bracelets and things like this, so that if I did hit you, you knew it. And I waylaid some people. I'll to this day, I said, I swear to God, I hit a lot of people. But then they deserved it. It's not like I just walked up to you and punched you. I mean, you hit me first, and I knocked you out in second. So
nice. Well,
it was kind of fun. It was it's kind of a job where you get paid to beat up people, and I was very lucky that I didn't have any court cases. Tully had a girl that was in Florida that had jumped down whenever they went to the dressing room. You had to go underneath like the bleachers. There was kind of like a gateway right through there. And a girl jumped down like right in front of him and was like in a football stance, like, I'm going to get you. And he pushed her. And it turned out to be a 14-year-old girl. And her mom sued Tully, and it ended up costing him more than $20,000 for all the court costs and going back and forth to Florida and the whole thing. So Tully did win the case, but you lost because it cost you, $20,000. You didn't really win anything. So I was very fortunate that I didn't have any cases brought against me, but then who's going to take me to court and say a girl hit you?
Yeah, very true.
Right.
Well, one thing that impressed me so much about what all of you did at Crockett was, you talk about situations like that. If all of you weren't doing your jobs properly, and you weren't generating those kinds of emotions, those things wouldn't have been happening. And, it was just such an amazing group of people and performers that were working there. What was the secret sauce in this? I mean, how did you all manage to, from top to bottom, get people so excited about coming to professional wrestling matches and get them either so elated or so angry that they would react like that? Oh, I'm sorry. You still there? Did we lose? Oh, we lost her. I'll tell you what. Let me take a break, and we're going to call Baby Doll back and get her back on the show, and we will ask her that question again. So stick around, everybody. We'll be right back with more on the Mark Hoke Show in just a second. Tired of the same boring food when you're out for breakfast or lunch? I'm Mark Hoke, and I have an idea for a different place to go with unique food you're sure to enjoy, and that's Unique Eats. Take some time out of your busy day and stop on in to Unique Eats, featuring celebrity chef Dominic Tedesco and his friendly staff. Whether it's a great start to your day with one of Unique Eats' amazing omelets, or lunch with his incredible sandwiches, pasta, and award-winning pizzas, you'll be in for a fantastic dining experience that won't break the bank. Unique Eats also features a smoothie bar and full vegetarian menu as well. Plus, if you need catering, you can count on Unique Eats no matter what the occasion. So what are you waiting for? Get on over to Unique Eats at 3100 South Durango, Suite 100, open daily until 3 p.m. Call them at 702-992-3038 or visit UniqueEatsLV.com for their full menu and catering info. Break out of the same old routine and have a great meal at Unique Eats today.
1015 FM KDWN. You're listening to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Vegas, The Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Now, here again is Mark Hoke.
And we are back on the Mark Hoke Show here on KDWN 1015 FM and still 720 AM here in Las Vegas, the best in professional wrestling news and entertainment. And we are rejoined by 80s wrestling icon, Baby Doll. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Just some bad weather in North Carolina, I guess. I don't know what happened.
Oh, it's all good. Well, it's just
it's a Chinese weather balloon.
It might be. Yeah, I'm sure that was a lot of fun for you guys out there. But well, I was just asking a question before we left about the emotion and how the team there at Crockett and all the performers were able to create such emotion in people whether it's, being so excited and the adulation or the anger that would get them to the point where they were doing the things that they were doing. What was the magic there? How did you guys do it?
Just really good booking, really good storytelling. It's all in your character, and it's all in making people believe that something's happening that's not really happening. It was, I think, a really good example of that is whenever I had turned babyface and I was working with Dusty, and Dusty had the world title match against Flair in Charlotte, and whenever I put Flair's foot on the rope, and you can actually hear like the crowd gasp because they didn't believe it. They couldn't believe that Baby Doll had turned on Dusty Rhodes. I had taken all their emotions and all their love for me and had taken it to another complete 180, and I messed them up, and they hated me. And when people say like white hot heat, like you can actually feel like that night I was so afraid because you could actually feel the temperature of the Coliseum go up because people were just like, she did it. I can't believe she did it. You just mess with people's emotions, and you take them one way, and then you take them another direction, and then once they're going in this direction, then you take them in a completely different direction. So it's all psychology, and it's all in making them believe that something is happening that's not happening.
You're really bad.
I was very bad. I was very good at being very bad.
Yes, you were. Well,
and you but you love to hate me, and that was the whole thing. I mean, people wanted to hate me, and it was one of the examples is like whenever I had just started working with Tully, and I had a face-off with Dusty in the ring, and we're like talking smack to each other, and I just slap him like out of the blue. I just smack him. And then he smacks me back, just it's a retaliation. And I never had seen the videos until this couple of years ago, but I was watching the crowd, and women are standing up telling Dusty to hit me again, hit her again. And they've got like the cigarettes hanging out of their mouth and the soda and the whole thing. And for a woman to tell a man to hit another woman is beyond any comprehension that we have, because women just don't do that. They should be like, no, don't do that. But it was really fun. But then it was a little bit of me because it's kind of the smart ass in me, but it definitely was the magic of Tully and Dusty working together, and just the three of us, just the chemistry. It worked. It so worked.
Yeah, of course, we're on with Baby Doll from, of course, the Jim Crockett days of the NWA. And, one thing that really struck me, I went back and I rewatched the Dark Side of the Ring show where they were, about the Grizzly Smith story that you were in. I watched the Tales from the Territory show, where you were all sitting around talking about the Crockett show. And at the end of that show, you were crying. And I'm really curious what your reaction was when you watched both of those shows, because obviously you had the good side with everything that happened with Crockett, you had everything that happened with Grizzly. Of course, you were married to Sam Houston, who was Grizzly's son. What was going through your mind when you saw those shows?
How impressed I was with the production of it, just how they took all of our stories and put it all together and had it make sense. They didn't make anybody look horribly bad or horribly good. Either way, they told the story and kind of let us all make up our own minds. With Grizzly, he was an integral part of wrestling. I mean, he worked with Mid-South. He worked with WWF. He trained a lot of guys. He had helped a lot of the guys in the business. At the time, whenever I was traveling with Grizz and when Sam and I were married, never would I have thought what was going on, of what had happened later. It finally came to light on everything. There had always been rumors and things of that sort, but even traveling with him for like 2 years, I went for weeks at a time and didn't see anything. I mean, you're kind of like you had that feeling like something was weird, so you're like you're watching and looking, never saw anything. And even like with Robin, I wish to this day I'd known what was going on then. I don't know what I would have done, but I would have done something, and I wish I could have helped her more than what I did. And then when they had the Tales of the Territory, it was David Crockett and Arn and Ricky Morton and myself. And Nikita was supposed to be in on it, but they had canceled his flight, so he had to fly in on the next day, and they did his part separate. But it was so much fun just sitting down with those guys and reminiscing. And for me to cry, I mean, I'm really sentimental, but I love professional wrestling. It's been a part of my life, my whole life. Both of my parents were wrestlers. Both of the men that I married were both wrestlers. My daughter wrestles. I just love it. I like the theatrics of it. I love the costumes. I love the fans. I love the emotion. It's everything. And when you get into it like I do, you appreciate what it is. And I think that the business has changed so much now that I think that the kids today don't have that camaraderie and that time of being on the road with people, because like in 85, I worked 350 days out of the whole year.
Wow.
I had 15 days off. So if I'd had a family, I would have never seen them because I was literally on the road pretty much every day. But that was part of it, and that was part of being successful. Now the guys work like 1 day a week, 2 days a month, something like that. And they're bitching because they're having to work too much. And it's just like, if y'all did a 2-week trip like with Tully and I, y'all would have never made it. Just never. Because we worked, like Monday and we had Monday was like a close show like Greenville or Columbia. Tuesday would have been TV, which their rule was like within 80 miles because they had to have the truck back to Crockett Studios by Wednesday morning so they could do the editing and the promos. Then Wednesday morning we had to be at Crockett Studios at like 7 o'clock in the morning to start our promos, and we would do promos all day until they gave us our check, which was usually about 2 or 2:30 because they knew that once they gave us our check, we were out the door and headed to Raleigh.
Yeah.
Then you had like Raleigh, Norfolk, and Richmond were like a 3-day out trip. Then like Saturday, we had to be at TBS Studios by 8 o'clock in the morning, which meant that we were, at the airport at 6 o'clock in the morning somewhere to catch a flight to Atlanta, then do the taxi all the way across town to TBS Studios, get dressed, do TV for, I think it was about 4 or 5 hours for that because we had the 1 hour morning show, then we had the 2 hour 6:05, and then we had another hour on Sunday. So there was at least 3 hours of TV on Saturday morning. Then we would fly out to like Baltimore, Philadelphia, back to Charlotte, maybe even like to California or somewhere like that. So it was like usually a long flight on Saturday. Then hopefully you were in a place where you had 2 days in a row so you could at least stay in the hotel for at least more than one night. And then Monday morning we were right back in Charlotte. So it was just constant.
Wow.
And that wasn't even counting the driving trips.
That is incredible.
And so easily worked 10 times a week, easily.
I kind of had to laugh that you had to take a deep breath when you were telling that story in the middle of it. that says it all right there.
Yeah, that was just 1 week. So
Wow.
try doing that for a couple of years. But you wanted that because if you weren't working every night, if you weren't traveling and you weren't being seen on TV and doing promos, then you weren't successful. You weren't, quote, over.
Right.
And you wanted to be over. So it was insane. It really was.
Oh, we got about a minute and a half left. So I want to ask you what it's like now watching, because I know your daughter wrestles. What is it like seeing Cody now and bringing back all these memories about Dusty and everything? What's that like for you to watch that?
It's really cool because we were in Las Vegas whenever Michelle went into labor, and I remember when I was there whenever they told Dusty that he had to get to the airport and get on a plane because his wife was going into labor, that just a look of just utter adulation, and you could just see that he already loved Cody with all of his heart right before then. And then even with his sister, Teal Margaret, Dusty loved his kids. And to see Cody and how much he loves the business, and hear how he's watching tapes and calling in guys, hey, watch this, I want to do this, and he's watching like old Crockett tapes. I absolutely love it, and I wish that Dusty were here to see it, but I believe in God and I believe in heaven, and I believe that Dusty's watching over all of us.
That's awesome. Real quick, we've got about 30 seconds before we start the music, but if you have anything coming up or let everybody know where they can follow you on social media.
Oh, my gosh, I got a lot of stuff coming up. I got Mid-Atlantic Territory Wrestling. That's March the 18th in Chester, West Virginia, or Chester, Virginia. Then I've got ASW for Gary Dameron, and on April the 18th for his promotion. I've got some stuff scheduled up in May that's not, for sure. But follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. If y'all want pictures or to talk to me, just hit me up. I'll be certainly happy to talk to you.
Awesome. Baby Doll, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was an honor for me, and we'll have to do this again sometime. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You got it. That was Baby Doll, everybody. Wow. Yeah, we definitely got to get her on again. Hey, thanks for joining us here on the Mark Hoke Show. We got Jeremy Lambert from Fightful.com next week. And, of course, don't forget to follow us on Facebook at The Mark Hoke Show, on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, markhokeshow.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Mark Hoke Show. And, of course, those podcasts, markhokeshow.podbean.com. Thanks for listening to The Mark Hoke Show, everybody. We will see you next week. Go Eagles! Want more of The Mark Hoke Show? Follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, like us on Facebook at The Mark Hoke Show, and visit markhokeshow.com to keep up with everything happening with the show. And remember to check out all of our archive shows on YouTube at The Mark Hoke Show, and download our podcasts at markhokeshow.podbean.com and all your favorite podcast outlets. So join The Mark Hoke Show family today, and thanks for listening.